Have you ever stumbled upon an old photograph of yourself and felt a jolt of dislocation, a strange sense of looking at a complete stranger? It's a profoundly human moment, isn't it? You see the familiar curve of a smile, the light in the eyes, but the person looking back at you is from a different era, a different lifetime. That feeling, that quiet gap between the person immortalized in a faded color and the person breathing here and now, is the silent testament to one of life's greatest and most terrifying truths. We are in a constant, sacred state of becoming. This isn't just a story about change. This is a roadmap for the beautiful, brutal, and holy process of burning down who you thought you were to become, who you have always been. It begins with that unsettling quiet of a dusty attic or a long-forgotten box pulled from the back of a closet. Your fingers graze over stacks of memories until they land on one particular photograph. There you are, 10, maybe 15 years younger. The clothes are dated, the hairstyle a relic of a bygone era, but it's the eyes that hold you captive. There's a naivete there, an unwritten story in their gaze. You remember being that person. You remember the dreams they had, the fears that kept them awake at night, the fierce loyalty they held for people, and ideas that have long since faded from your life. And yet, you are not them. The connection feels tenuous, like a dream you can only half remember upon waking. The stories that have etched themselves onto your face, the resilience that has fortified your spirit, the quiet wisdom born from pain and joy, none of it is visible in that smiling stranger. That person couldn't have imagined the life you've lived, the losses you've weathered, or the strength you've discovered in the wreckage. This disconnect is not a failure of memory. It is the first startling clue that a profound internal shift has occurred. You have, without ceremony or announcement, evolved. That photograph is not just an image. It is a ghost, a beautiful artifact from a forgotten civilization that was once you. It marks the beginning of our journey. The moment we realize that the person we are is a traveler, and the person we were is simply a landmark on a map we are still drawing. We are conditioned by stories to expect transformation to be a thunderous event, a lightning strike of epiphany, a dramatic makeover montage set to an empowering soundtrack. But the truth is, real change rarely announces its arrival. It moves with the subtlety of the tide, slowly reshaping the shoreline of your identity in increments too small to measure day by day. It is a silent process, a quiet and gradual transformation that often happens in the margins of our lives. Think about the music that once formed the anthem of your youth. One day, you realize you haven't listened to it in years. And when you do, the emotional charge is gone. It's a relic, not a revelation. Consider the friendships that used to be the bedrock of your social life. There was no dramatic falling out, no singular moment of betrayal. There was only a slow, gentle drifting, like two ships charting courses for different stars, until you looked up and realized you could no longer see their lights on the horizon. This is how true transformation unfolds. It's in the way your political or spiritual beliefs soften from rigid certainty into nuanced compassion. It's the sudden realization that your Saturday nights are now more fulfilled by a good book than a crowded bar. These are not conscious decisions, not items checked off a self-improvement list. They are the result of a quiet, internal erosion. Old habits, desires, and connections are gently worn away by the steady current of your evolving soul. revealing new landscapes within you. You don't notice the canyon being carved while the river is flowing. You only see its magnificent depth in hindsight. This is the nature of becoming. It doesn't ask for permission. It simply happens in the stillness between heartbeats, in the unexamined choices of your daily life. When we feel the foundations of our identity begin to crumble, it can be terrifying. We are left with the disorienting question, if I am not that, then who am I? This feeling has a name, and it is a cornerstone of deep transformation, ego death. The ego, in this sense, is not about arrogance. It is the construct of self, the carefully curated identity we have built from our experiences, beliefs, and roles. Ego death is the dissolution of this subjective self-identity. It is the moment the mask we've worn for so long cracks, and we are forced to confront the face underneath. This process often feels like a loss, a psychic death, because the person we thought we were is, in a very real sense, dying. This psychological earthquake is mirrored by a profound process in our very biology, inner rewiring. Our brains are not static, fixed organs. They are remarkably adaptable, a concept known as neuroplasticity. Think of your thoughts and habits as pathways forged through a dense forest. The more you walk a certain path, a self-critical thought, a reactive burst of anger, a pattern of people-pleasing, the wider, clearer, and more automatic that path becomes. This is how identity becomes neurologically encoded. Change, therefore, is the conscious and effortful act of forging a new neural pathway. At first, it's like hacking through dense undergrowth. It's difficult, uncomfortable, and requires immense focus. But with each repetition of a new thought, a new boundary, a new compassionate response, the new path becomes more defined. Neurons that fire together, wire together. You are quite literally rewiring your brain to support a new version of yourself. This convergence of psychological dissolution and neurological reconstruction gives rise to a powerful spiritual rebirth. It is the paradox of feeling profound grief for the self that is passing away, while simultaneously sensing a thrilling expansion into a new, more authentic way of being. It's the pain of the seed cracking open in the dark soil, a necessary destruction to allow the first green shoot to reach for the light. This is the sacred mechanics of transformation. The mind lets go, the brain rewires, and the soul is reborn. To understand the self we are letting go of, we must travel back to its origin story, to a time when our world was giant and we were very small. As children, our most fundamental need is not just for food and shelter, but for safety, attunement, and belonging. We are exquisitely sensitive to the emotional currents of our environment, unconsciously recognizing that our survival depends on the approval of our caregivers. It is in this fertile, vulnerable ground that the seeds of the false self are sown. The false self, or the performer self, is not a malicious creation. It is a masterpiece of childhood survival strategy. A child who is naturally boisterous and joyful might learn that quiet compliance is what earns a stressed parent, affection. A deeply sensitive and emotional child might learn to toughen up, to avoid ridicule or dismissal. We quickly and brilliantly learn which parts of our authentic being are celebrated and which are deemed unacceptable. In response, we begin to curate our personality. We repress the unacceptable emotions and amplify the approved behaviors. We become little actors, learning our lines perfectly to ensure the audience of our world continues to provide love and security. This performance comes at a cost. The authentic, spontaneous gestures of the true self are buried beneath the layers of this adaptive, compliant persona. The message we internalize is not, "I am loved," but rather, "I am loved when I behave this way." This subtle distinction becomes the foundational belief system of the false self, a belief that will follow us into adulthood. Our worth is conditional, and our authenticity is dangerous. We learn to earn our safety by becoming who others need us to be. A tragic and brilliant strategy that sets the stage for a lifetime of performance. As we step into adulthood, the performer self we cultivated in childhood doesn't disappear. It simply graduates into more sophisticated and socially acceptable roles. The world becomes a grand stage, and we, having spent years rehearsing, step into our designated personas. These are the masks we wear, often so consistently that we forget they are masks at all. We begin to confuse the role we are playing with our true identity. Let's meet some of these performers. There is the achiever, whose entire sense of self-worth is fused with their productivity and success. They are a whirlwind of ambition, constantly chasing the next goal, the next promotion, the next accolade. Their mask is one of competence and relentless drive, but beneath it lies a deep-seated fear of being worthless if they ever stop producing. Their identity is not "I am," but "I do." Then there is the caretaker, the perpetual people-pleaser, whose identity is built on being indispensable to others. They are the friend who will drop everything to help, the colleague who always takes on extra work, the family member who smooths over every conflict. Their mask is one of selfless kindness and boundless empathy, but it conceals a profound neglect of their own needs and a terror of rejection if they were to ever say "Storpabra no." And we cannot forget the stoic, the unshakable rock for everyone around them. They are masters of emotional suppression, never showing vulnerability, never admitting to struggle. Their mask is one of strength and invincibility, a comforting presence for others to lean on. Yet, behind this facade is a crushing loneliness and the deep-seated belief that their own needs would be an unacceptable burden to others. For a time, these masks serve us. They bring us praise, admiration, and a sense of place in the world. But eventually, the mask that once felt like a shield begins to feel like a cage. The applause from the audience starts to feel hollow because we know, in a quiet, aching part of our soul, that the applause is for the character, not for the real person hidden away backstage. We are admired, but we are not truly seen. This is the great paradox of the false self. The very thing that once guaranteed our survival now threatens to suffocate our soul. The feeling of being stuck in a persona, of being an achiever, a caretaker, a stoic, is not just a psychological phenomenon. It is written into the physical structure of your brain. As we discussed, neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to change and adapt based on experience. This is where the biology of habit and identity intersect in a powerful, self-perpetuating loop. Every time you repeat a thought or behavior associated with your mask, you strengthen a specific neural circuit. Imagine the thought, "I must be perfect to be loved." The first time a child has this thought, it's a faint trail in the neurological forest, but repeated thousands of times over years, through every act of perfectionism and every moment of seeking external validation, that trail becomes a deeply grooved 6-lane superhighway. The brain, in its efficiency, defaults to this pathway because it's the most well-traveled. That thought is no longer just a thought. It has become a core component of your neurological identity. This is the biology of being stuck. Your identity is, in essence, your most practiced set of neural pathways. But here is the revolutionary hope embedded in this science. If your brain can be wired, it can be rewired. The agent of this change is awareness. When you can step back and observe your automatic patterns without judgment, when you can catch the perfectionistic thought as it arises, or notice the impulse to say, yes, when you mean no, you create a crucial pause. In that moment of mindfulness, you interrupt the automatic firing of the old circuit. You create a space of choice. In that space, you can intentionally choose a different thought or a different action. You can choose to tell yourself, I am worthy even in my imperfection. You can choose to say, I can't take that on right now. Each time you do this, you are beginning to forge a new, alternative neural pathway. It will feel unnatural and difficult at first, like the early hacking through the forest we spoke of. But with repetition, this new path will become stronger, clearer, and eventually, the new default. You're not just changing your mind, you're actively participating in the physical reconstruction of your brain, sculpting it toward the identity you truly desire to embody. There comes a point on this journey where the old structures of the self have begun to dissolve, but the new ones have not yet fully formed. The masks are cracking, the old neural highways are being questioned, but the new paths are still faint and uncertain. This is not a gentle transition, it is a collapse. This profound and terrifying state of disorientation is known as the dark night of the soul. This is more than just sadness or confusion. It is a spiritual and existential crisis where the very foundation of your life feels as though it has been pulled out from under you. The things that once gave you meaning, your career, your relationships, your beliefs, may suddenly feel empty and hollow. You may look at your life, a life that might look perfect on the outside, and feel a profound sense of brokenness and disconnection, asking yourself, who am I anymore? This is the hallmark of the dark night, a complete loss of your old identity and a painful obscuration of your true essence. It can feel like a deep spiritual darkness, a state of being utterly lost in a void where nothing makes sense. But it is crucial to understand that this darkness is not a sign that you are broken or have taken a wrong turn. This is a sacred and necessary part of the transformative process. It is an intervention orchestrated by your soul to bring you back into alignment. Think of it as a cocoon phase. To the outside world, the cocoon appears dormant, lifeless, but inside, a messy, chaotic, and miraculous dissolution is taking place. The old form of the caterpillar is being completely deconstructed, its cells repurposed to create something entirely new. The dark night of the soul is this sacred crucible. It is the fertile soil of suffering where the seed of your true self is buried, waiting to germinate. It is the alchemical fire burning away all the impurities, all the false layers of the ego, until only the pure gold of your authentic being remains. Just as you are navigating the chaotic darkness of your inner world, you will likely encounter a new and unexpected challenge, resistance from the outer world. The very people who once applauded your persona may now become uncomfortable with your transformation. Society, communities, and even our closest relationships are built on a foundation of predictability. People like to know who you are. It makes them feel safe. They have cast you in a specific role in the movie of their life, and your personal evolution is an unscripted deviation that disrupts their entire narrative. When the lifelong people pleaser begins to set firm boundaries, they are no longer seen as kind, but are suddenly labeled selfish. When the workaholic achiever quits their high powered job to pursue a passion that nourishes their soul, they are not seen as courageous, but as irresponsible or naive. When the friend who was always the life of the party gets sober and starts preferring quiet nights in, they are dismissed as boring. This resistance is not always born of malice. Your change is a mirror. And for those who are deeply invested in their own masks and comfortable in their own stagnation, the reflection you cast is threatening. Your growth implicitly asks them a question they may not be ready to face. What am I avoiding? What change am I afraid to make? Your courage highlights their fear, and it is often easier for them to try and pull you back into your old, familiar box than it is for them to confront their own. Therefore, the act of personal transformation becomes a quiet and sometimes not so quiet act of rebellion. It is a rebellion against the unspoken social contract that demands you remain consistent for the comfort of others. It is choosing the terrifying uncertainty of your own authentic path over the comfortable, predictable prison of external expectations. You learn that one of the most profound challenges of changing yourself is navigating the world that wishes you would stay the same. The collision of your inner dark night and the external world's resistance gives birth to a unique and poignant form of isolation. This is the loneliness of becoming. It is not the loneliness of being physically alone. In fact, you can be surrounded by people and feel it more acutely than ever. It is the loneliness of being profoundly misunderstood. You are learning to speak a new inner language, but the people in your life still only understand your old dialect. There is a deep grief in this process. You are grieving the loss of the old you, the one who fit in so easily, the one who knew all the rules of the game. But you are also grieving the connections that are beginning to fray. As you grow, you will inevitably outgrow some relationships. The conversations feel superficial, the shared interests have faded, and the energetic frequency is no longer a match. This isn't about judgment. It is simply the natural, painful consequence of evolution. You are a ship that has left the harbor, and some of the other ships are meant to remain docked. This creates a feeling of being in a liminal space, an awkward gap between a world that no longer fits and a new one that hasn't fully formed yet. Your inner life is evolving at a pace that your external reality can't keep up with. This uncomfortable emptiness is not a sign of failure. It is the necessary space being cleared for new people, new opportunities, and a new life that aligns with the person you are becoming. It is the profound solitude of the phoenix, which must retreat and burn alone before it can rise again. This loneliness is the sacred pause before the reunion with your true tribe. After the collapse, after the burning, comes the slow and intentional work of rebuilding. But this is not about constructing a new persona from scratch. It is a process of integration. The goal is not to eliminate the parts of yourself you once deemed unacceptable, but to welcome them home. This is the essence of what psychologist Carl Jung called shadow work. The shadow self is the repository for all the traits we were taught to repress in childhood: our anger, our fear, our jealousy, our vulnerability. We pushed these parts into the darkness, but they never went away. Integration is the process of turning to face this shadow with compassion and curiosity. It is recognizing that the performer who ran your life for so long was not an enemy. It was a clever and loyal guardian trying to protect a vulnerable child. The work is to thank that part for its service, and then gently ask it to step back and allow the true self to lead. It is about understanding that your anger is not bad. It is a vital messenger pointing to a boundary that has been crossed. Your vulnerability is not weakness. It is the gateway to authentic connection. This integration happens through conscious practice. It happens by setting boundaries, which are not walls to keep others out, but a clear and loving definition of where you end and another person begins. It is built through reflection, journaling, meditation, or quiet contemplation, creating a space to listen to the whispers of your soul and understand the needs of those long-buried parts. Most importantly, it is cultivated through emotional presence, learning to sit with your feelings without judgment, to feel them fully in your body, and to allow their energy to move through you. Through this courageous process, the fragmented pieces of your psyche begin to reorganize. You are no longer at war with yourself. You are becoming a unified, resilient, and integrated whole, capable of holding both your light and your darkness with unwavering love. As you integrate the lost pieces of yourself, a profound realization dawns. This entire, arduous journey was never about becoming someone new. It has been an archeological dig, a sacred excavation to uncover the person you were before the world told you who to be. The ultimate goal of transformation is not reinvention, but recovery. 36. It is the homecoming to your original self. Beneath the layers of conditioning, beneath the performer personas and the survival strategies, lies an unwounded, authentic core. This is the inner child, the part of you that is inherently curious, playful, creative, and emotionally honest. It is the self that knew what it loved before it was taught what it should love. It is the self that expressed its feelings without shame before it learned to suppress them for approval. This self has never left you. It has simply been buried, waiting patiently for you to find it again. The process, therefore, is one of unlearning. It is about peeling away the layers of societal expectations, of familial conditioning, of self-imposed limitations. Like the famous saying attributed to Michelangelo, the sculpture was already complete within the marble block. His job was simply to chip away the excess stone that was not part of the masterpiece. Your original self is that masterpiece. The pain, the collapse, the dark night, all of it was the chisel, chipping away everything that was not truly you. The ultimate relief of this journey is discovering that you do not have to invent a worthy, lovable self. You only have to remember and reclaim the one who has been there all along. Now, we zoom out to the widest possible perspective and see this entire cycle for what it truly is: a sacred and universal pattern of death, dissolution, and renewal. This is the rhythm of the cosmos, visible in the forest that must burn to allow for new growth in the star that collapses under its own weight to forge new elements in the winter that must arrive for the earth to rest and burst forth in the spring. Your personal transformation is not an isolated, random event. It is a reflection of a divine, cosmic dance. From this vantage point, the pain of your journey is reframed. The dark night of the soul was not a punishment, it was a holy purification. The loneliness was not an abandonment, it was a sacred solitude. The collapse of your old life was not a failure, it was a necessary and sacred destruction. This is the ultimate teaching of the phoenix. The mythical bird is not a victim of the fire. It is a willing participant in its own transformation. It understands that it must be utterly consumed, reduced to ash, for its most glorious and authentic form to emerge. It is reborn, not in spite of the fire, but because of the fire. The flames were the very instrument of its liberation. You were never the victim of your life's circumstances or the pain you endured. That was the old story, the story of the false self. The profound truth is that you have always been the fire itself, the destructive, purifying, and life-giving force of transformation has been your own soul, your own resilient spirit, guiding you through the ashes and into the magnificent truth of who you were always meant to be. This journey from the stranger in the photo to the fire of the phoenix is the most profound journey any of us will ever take. It is the journey home to ourselves. The greatest lesson from this story is to be deeply compassionate and patient with yourself, wherever you may be on this path. If you feel lost in the dark, know that you are not broken. You are in the sacred cocoon. If you feel the sting of loneliness as you change, know that you are simply clearing space for your true tribe. If you are starting to question the masks you wear, celebrate your courage. You are hearing the call of your soul. Learn to listen to the quiet whispers of your inner voice over the loud demands of the world. Trust that your discomfort is not a sign to retreat, but a signal that you are growing. And above all, remember that you are not creating a new you. You are simply uncovering the magnificent, unwounded, and powerful being that has been inside you all along. I leave you with a few questions to carry with you. Which part of this 12-stage journey resonates most deeply with where you are in your life right now? What is one mask, one persona that you feel ready to begin loosening your grip on? What is one thing your original self, your inner child, loved to do that you could bring back into your life, even for just a few moments this week? I'd love to read your thoughts and reflections in the comments below. Sharing our stories is how we light the way for one another through the darkness. And if this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into the heart of what it means to be a gloriously evolving human being.